Welcome to Transforming with Us,
where we talk about
all things trans and queer.
Hello, welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about Idaho and Alabama and what they are trying to do against trans people.
Yeah, reading over the last few days together with you, it looks like Idaho is trying to put doctors away for life for providing gender-affirming care, and Alabama is doing something similar. Not as harsh. They're talking about 10 years in prison, but I mean, what the heck? You're going to go to jail for providing gender-affirming care?
I think they got some weird misconception about it too. The thing that's driving me crazy is reading this guy in Idaho, and he was talking about how we don't let teenagers get tattoos, right? And he's like, we don't let teenagers get tattoos. We don't have any of that issue. So why do they have to get this gender affirming care? Well, then I'm, being my smart self that I am really good about this. So I actually looked it up, and I found out that Idaho actually has a specific bill that says that you can get a tattoo under the age of 18, between 14 to 18, as long as you have, ready for it, parental consent.
I was going to say, because I think Massachusetts is the same way. It's 16 to 18, you can get a tattoo if you have parental consent. Okay, but that just, it doesn't make sense then, because most of the teenagers that are starting their transitions, let's say average is 15, 16 years old, they have their parents' consent.
Exactly.
The doctor requires parental consent if you're under 18 before you can start hormone blockers or hormone replacement therapy, any of it.
Exactly. I remember looking at it. So anybody who's from Idaho, it's section 18-1523, where between the age of 14 and 18, as long as you have parental consent, you can get a tattoo. So their logic to the transitioning youth people is moot.
Right. That blows my mind. I didn't know about the tattoo thing, and thank you for going and digging that up. But yeah, I mean, wow.
Yeah,
it's hard to wrap your head around. How do you even fathom something like that? And that just shows you that it's directly, aimed at the trans youth and the trans community, the LGBTQ community, because there's just no reason for it. You got bills like that say, okay, you can get a tattoo if you have parental consent, but you got to target this specific group of people, because why? And that's the thing, nobody can explain why.
Well, it's really graphic, so I promise this episode will be under explicit because it is a graphic statement that I read, but they talked about that somebody shouldn't castrate their son, or that you shouldn't be doing surgery on young girls. So that, number one, they're already completely negating the fact that they're trans, but two, they're talking about things that doctors don't do already, and linking that in with gender affirming care like hormone blockers and stuff. When I think they just released a study, I think it was earlier this year, was like gender affirming care reduces moderate to severe depression by 60% and suicide ideations by 73%. So if they take that away,
it's going to flip-flop. It's just going to do a complete 360 and go the opposite way. Because I was going to say, I don't know any surgeon that does surgery on anyone under the age of 18. It's just not heard of. The only things that I've ever seen done under the age of 18 is, at an appropriate age, if a child comes out as trans or even non-binary at that, they get put on, you could have the option to do hormone blockers. And that's just a simple medication. And then, I haven't even heard of anybody transitioning to HRT well before 16.
Same. Yeah, that's same. Hormone blockers are normally the number one thing I hear. And so what, you're going to force a child to go through traumatic experiences, force them to have menstruation when they're a trans man, and force a trans woman to go through masculinization when they don't want to go through that, and then make their life harder because it is harder for a trans woman to realistically, and I've been told this by many trans women, to transition when they're adults. It's harder. It is so much harder. They have to go through a lot more vocal training. They end up having to get a lot more surgeries than most people. And like, they don't understand that if we do this care, then we are able to help them.
Right.
Not
Right.
have to,
Because-
saving them time, money, depression, possible unaliving. So
right. Well, and that's the thing too, because for a lot of trans women, you know, having to come out later in life and everything, your bone structure is already grown. Your plates are already done. So, you know, you have to have those feature surgeries. You know, I have friends that have had to have their Adam's apple shaved down so that they didn't have that showing anymore. You know, facial features have to get redone because you just, that's stuff that medicine doesn't change for you. Only surgeries will, and you can prevent that easily by allowing these kids to continue to get the treatment that they need. For me personally, I know I would have loved to be on hormone blockers. I wouldn't have gone through the wrong puberty and only had to go through one in my life, but maybe I'd be a little bit taller and not so insecure about my height, and just little things like that.
And yeah, and that's another thing people don't realize is that I mean, I get this comment a lot, and I'm not tall necessarily. I have a trans man friend who's 6'2". I've told him numerous times I love and hate him at the same time. Because, you know, we do get jealous of people we're taller, but I am 5'7", and I actually get the statement from a few people, and they do mean it in kindness, of like, oh, you're taller than I thought. And I'm like, well, that's really bad for you to say, number one, so don't say that. But it also proved my point. I was like, we tend to get stereotyped into these small people when I know more cis men who are actually shorter than some of my friends who are trans who are 5'2". Like, I know men who are 5 feet tall that are cis, and we don't talk about that enough because it's a serious issue. And if we can let these children go through a correct puberty, they won't have to deal with some of the dysphoria issues that some of us will have to deal with the rest of our lives.
Right. Yeah. I'm only 5'3", and you know, it doesn't bother me a whole lot. I mean, everybody's tall. I mean, my dad's really short, so it was probably going to happen one way or the other, regardless.
Yeah, I'm around my dad's height, so.
No, I'm very short, especially if I stand next to my almost 22-year-old brother. I only stand up to his shoulder, so it's crazy.
My brother's literally a foot taller than me. He's 6'7", so no, we're good. We're good. I felt short my whole life. Between his mom is 6 feet and he's 6'7", I'm good.
when I started going through puberty, which I went through puberty late in life, I don't even think I started till I was 14. I was a freshman in high school. I was a really late bloomer. And you know, by that point I could have been on blockers and not had to go through the embarrassment of my mom taking me into school and telling my teachers that I had just started menstruating and taking me to the nurse so that the nurse knew, oh, you know, if anything's wrong with so and so, just let them leave class and use the restroom. It's like, no, like, this is why this is happening to me. Why?
Yeah, I was because I was already had a lot of testosterone in my blood. Hormone blockers would have been fine for me because I actually didn't have my first real menstruation until my high school graduation day.
Oh,
literally
wow.
The day I graduated high school, I was in so much pain, and I was like, what is wrong? And when my parents forced me to wear this white dress.
I feel your pain. I bet. Oh my God.
Oh, I was livid. But I mean, it goes to show you that if I was like put on hormone blockers, and I probably would have been able to start the correct, you know, puberty and stuff, which would make a lot of sense. And the thing is like, I'm looking at it, and it's so right now Idaho's House approved this bill.
Right.
It's like what's called H.675. It's now going into the Senate for further consideration. And most of it is clout for re-election, because if people aren't paying attention, the reason why we're really big on the politics right now is because it is election year for a lot of these senates and governors and mayors and representatives. It is election year.
Yep, just like we touched on last week, and that's exactly what a lot of these people are going after. Is they're like, oh, we know this is going to win us a couple of votes. We know this is going to win us a couple of votes, and that's all. They don't care about what they're doing to the youth. They don't care about what they're doing to the community. They're only in it for themselves.
Exactly. And I know Alabama tried doing, I know they did pass last year, HB 322, which is that trans people are not allowed to use bathrooms according to their gender. They have to
Okay, yep.
And then they tried to pass the bill that they're doing again this year, which is the HB 266, which has put a felony ban on healthcare, but they're going up to age 19, not even 18. They're like 19. So not only could you go to prison, but you would also get a fine. You would lose your medical license, all of that as well.
If the person is 19 or younger.
Yes, if they're 19 or younger, that is what they're doing. And I was also reading on the HRC. So last year,
I wonder how many young kids are going to end up emancipating themselves now.
I mean, yeah, why not move away, get out of these states? But I don't know how many people were aware. Last year, we broke the record for like 120 something bills for anti-LGBTQ. We're at March 10th today. And as of today, we've had more than 300 anti-LGBTQ bills under consideration.
Yeah, and I think
15 states.
Yeah, and I think you touched base on that too last week. Like what was it? 97 of those are against the trans community. Like, so 300 in general. You got almost a third of that aimed directly at the trans community.
Actually got higher.
Oof.
It's higher now. As of today, it's 147, and that's in 34 states, anti-transgender bills, 147 specifically alone. 15 states overall using a lot of anti-LGBT stuff, which is like the Don't Say Gay bill. That's going into Georgia next. That's also a couple other states like Indiana, Kansas. What's the other one I said? Can't remember. There's a few of them, but yes.
Oklahoma.
There you go, Oklahoma. Record 34 states anti-transgender bills. So we have a war going on across the globe. We're so focused on that we're all going to lose our rights in the process.
And I think that's a huge issue. And don't get me wrong. I mean, what's going on in Ukraine is an issue, and we'll touch about that later. But I think that the whole country is so focused on that. And that's another reason why these politicians and stuff are like, now's the time to try and pass these bills and just kind of sneak them on by, because they know that everybody's distracted. They know that we all care about what's going on overseas. A lot of us have family over there, friends, you name it. And so, it always seems like something big happens whenever election comes around, right?
Yeah.
Something to take away the focus from what's really going on behind the scenes. And what really disappoints me is that Biden just isn't really even making much acknowledgement of what's going on here.
Yeah, he's like tweeting, "I'm with you. This is horrible." And then, "These gas prices are not my fault." We don't care. Help your you have 30 some odd countries going after your 30 some odd states going after your goddamn citizens. Stop that.
Right. Do what you promised. Like this is why we voted you into office, is because we felt safe. We felt like you were definitely going to put in the work to help us make a change and really turn things around here. And here we are, and the world is at war overseas, and we're here slowly watching everything that has been reverted to the good of things, and now it's just going completely back.
Yeah,
we took one step forwards, and here we are taking 1,000 steps back.
Yes, I agree. Also, I would like to let anybody know that if you are a person that is likes shoes, or likes paying attention to which companies are actually helping support you, there are actually now over more than 150 major U.S. corporations that are protecting and fighting the anti-transgender bills. Places like AT&T, Nike, Microsoft, Amazon, believe it or not, which is weird, and Apple, American Airlines, Airbnb, Google, IBM, Lyft, so much more. I actually can probably link in the bio about all the companies that are actually helping to fight these corporations, or like these bills, so we can support these people. Why not?
Right.
And put our money where our mouth is. So.
Right. Exactly. And then you'll start to see the other ones dwindle, and they're going to wonder why. And which we'll talk about a big company in a little bit. That fits right in there.
Exactly, 100%. I agree with you. what are you thinking? Like, how do you feel with Idaho passing this in the House, and it's going on now into the next Senate? How do you feel about what's going on over there specifically?
I'm scared, man. I'm scared because, as we all know, usually these things will make it all the way through, and we know it's unconstitutional. We know that human right campaigns know it. There's even politicians that know it. The only thing that really sucks is that we know it'll end up passing, and it's going to take that much more work to get it in front of the right judges and say, hey, listen, this is unconstitutional. Here's proof, and here's this, and it could take years to try and get this stuff back. And it scares me for trans youth and anybody in the community, even allies who are parents. It scares me for them, because you want to show your child the love and support and do what's best for them and really, try and help. And now you've got lawmakers stepping in saying, well, you can't do that. You're going to be arrested for child abuse. Guess what, doc? You want to help this kid out? You're going to jail for life. Like, we're tearing apart families. We're tearing apart the community. And it's heartbreaking. It's scary, because who knows what could happen next.
I agree 100%. I think there was I think we talked about this last week a little bit, but there's people like moving out of these states. They're just like, we can't do this. Like, we can't protect our kid. We can't save them. We can't help them. There's no point in being here.
Right.
For people who are like, oh, well, you should stay and fight. Well, let me tell you what happened to one of the people that stayed recently. This woman has a transgender son. He's young. He's not on any hormone blockers. He's too young. He's way too young. He's like 9, but he's definitely living as a transgender boy. So the mother invites the attorney general over to the house to kind of show them that he's they have dinner and everything, wash their hands together, and the next day he's sent over for an investigation for student child services. So, I mean,
that's awful.
What?
That's awful. But the fact that a mother even felt like she had to invite a politician into her house to say, hey, look, my kid is just as normal as your kid. Nobody should ever have to feel or even have to think in that kind of mindset. Like, what? That's, and we need all the allies we can get. And this is part of why it makes it tough. It makes it tough full circle all the way around, because you have parents that are now way more accepting than they've ever been. And they can't even do that. They're being punished. So now they don't want to do that. And then the child suffers, everybody suffers. They're going from the doctor all the way down to the bottom of the chain.
Yeah. And the funny part is that some of these doctors, and I'll give you an example, like my doctor works for Planned Parenthood. My endo works for Planned Parenthood. She helps with, helping people with STDs. She helps with rape victims. She helps finding cancer screenings. She helps do everything under the sun. So these people who are helping us literally do a lot for the world that we're here in. So that's the people they're trying to put.
Yeah.
Listen, are these young men and women who have dedicated their lives to helping people be the best they can be, whether it's getting them, I don't know, like my cousin, she was pregnant and helping her get free sonograms because, she couldn't afford it and things like that, prenatal care. Like that was Planned Parenthood. That wasn't some random Joe Schmo hiding doctor.
Right. Yeah, I'm scared for them. I'm scared for the kids, the parents. I'm scared for everybody. It's just, this world is getting to be a crazy place. And it's happening so fast. That's what makes it scary too, is it's just like wham, 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 one thing right after the other. It's like, when is somebody gonna take a break and just like realize that it's all collapsing on top of itself? And this is not what I believe to be an American. This isn't what I stand for. And it makes me really sad.
Last time I thought that our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, all that stuff, I'm a big history buff, Andrew knows this. So, the United States is pretty old. She founded in 1778 and stuff, and everybody just has to understand one thing. We did it based on freedom of religion, freedom of persecution, freedom of all that stuff. we didn't want to be the people that were being told what to do, how to do it, who we had to worship, who we had to report to, like taxation without representation. All we fought to be free, and now we're not even the country we started out to be.
Nope.
Don't get me wrong. Back in the day, we had some issues too. It took a while for people to understand, other human beings had rights, but we fought really hard to get there.
Right. And made so many strides. I mean, I remember the day that gay marriage was legalized in all 50 states, because it was finally determined that it was unconstitutional to tell somebody who they could or could not love and who they could or could not marry. And I've watched so many things as far as, so many more health insurance companies offering trans healthcare, and making it easier for people to have surgeries, and then watching that get taken away, and just so many back and forths. It's like, when are we just going to realize that it needs to stop? That's just awful.
Yeah. This last year was the highest that we ever had of reported transgender brutality murders, and we're already off of the bank.
Right. That's not including the ones that were dead named or just tossed aside because, nobody's going to miss this person, this is not what we're about. And I'm glad that I had mentioned that to you earlier in text, and you said that you ended up tweeting it to or put it on Biden's Twitter.
Yeah, my smart ass decided. I was like, all right, hey, I Joe Biden, what the hell are we doing? I was like, we're gonna have so many transgender youths. Sorry, people, I'm squirting my cat. You're gonna have so many transgender youths who are gonna unalive themselves because you're so busy worrying about gas prices and a war when you don't understand that by the time you get paying attention, we're not gonna have any rights. Right. I was like, you need to do your job. I literally said that. I was done. I was like, screw this. What do I have to lose? I'm telling you that all your LGBT people are going to unalive themselves if you don't get your head out of your ass, and please do something about it. And then, of course, hashtag trans lives matter, because it's true. Because, I'm like, I don't care. Maybe one voice, but at least, who knows? Maybe somebody else will see it. Somebody else will like it, or somebody else other people will see it. I mean, his words don't matter to me anymore. I don't care what the fuck you say. And this is the first time I've ever cursed on this podcast, but I don't care what the fuck you say. I care about what the hell you do. Right.
I'm going to use a phrase that my mom used to tell me growing up, and it's, I'll believe it when I see it. And that's at the point that I'm at with him. It's like, okay, I haven't seen anything. I have not seen any progression that we were promised. Granted, Trump definitely took us 1,000 steps back. The only thing I have seen Biden actively do since he's been in office for the LGBTQ community is to reverse the trans ban in the military almost immediately. Other than that, I haven't seen a whole lot of pros come from that situation, and it makes me upset because I had my hopes set up high.
Yeah, well, he also said he was going to help us with student loans. But if anybody actually knows Biden has always been a person who fights against helping people reduce their student loans. His entire career, actually, he's done that. So I was kind of a little skeptical that he would even help. I was hoping he would, maybe saw the point of it because of COVID, but no, he never has. So we'll just see what happens at this point. We just voted for him because he wasn't Trump. We knew he wasn't good either, but
I voted for the lesser of the two evils. That's the way I put it. It's sad though when it boils down to that when it comes to an election too.
Yeah,
you should feel 100% confident in who you're voting for. And when I voted, I just voted for the one that I knew wasn't going to be as bad as the other. And please no Trump 2024. I don't think we stand a chance at him even running. I don't think he can with all the legal stuff he's got going on. I'm not sure, but
you never know. The man seems to wiggle his way out of everything. So we'll see what happens. I just only know you haven't seen his wife or his kids since they kind of vanished. They're like, we don't want to be near you. So that should be a telling sign of.
So where are we at in Alabama as far as this law goes?
Alabama hasn't passed yet. So lawmakers on Wednesday are advancing a legislation that would make it a crime for doctors to give transgender minority puberty blockers, hormone surgeries, yada, yada, yada. Like I said, this bill is several across other countries. Right now, it is moving into full House, Alabama's House of Representative. The committee is also approved an identical House a little bit is to this, where they can make it. So the House has approved one of them where it's like they could do the felony at 10 years in prisons for a doctor, but now they're trying to do other ways. They're like adults are free to do what they want, but this is to protect the children. Is like what Representative Wes Allen, the Republican who's sponsoring the bill, he's arguing that they're not mature enough to make decisions and that it's not good to give these medications considering these like long-term drugs to children. He says he doesn't believe that the person that's closest to the child should have the judgment. So on that note, I would like to say that he's probably not a great parent. And if he has his kid in a certain school, we shouldn't trust his judgment. We should move the kid somewhere else. We should start doing that for other people too, because this is extremely ridiculous. I mean, I know that a federal judge in July of last year temporarily blocked a similar law in Arkansas that would do that. Because the American Civil Liberties Union sued them, which is what they're suing Texas right now too. So I know they're getting involved in that. And then my favorite, which sounds so weird, but the satanic cult, there you go, are fighting a lot of these legislations. So right now, the satanic cults might be the LGBTQ and the women's rights only saviors, because they're even saying that it's, against religious beliefs in the satanic cults to not provide abortions, which, by the way, if you're in Texas and you need to have one, that you can use that and actually legally get abortion. So,
it's funny that that's what they're saying, is that like the underage kids, like they don't know, they can't make these decisions for themselves. Now, I'm going to remind everybody, I was 32 years old when I came out as trans, like officially. I tried to come out as 26, tried to come out as trans at 26, didn't work out. Waited 32, I come out as trans, and you can read it in one of my blogs on the website, but I had to go through all kinds of therapy before even being able to start HRT.
Yeah, that's
so they're not doing their research as far as to what goes into going into a transition, what we're expected to do medically before being allowed to even start hormone replacement therapy. You have to complete so many therapy sessions first with a gender therapist. You have to understand the pros, you have to understand the cons, you have to they make sure that you fully understand. I was 32 years old, fully capable of making my own decisions for my life, and still had to go through these checkpoints to make sure that I understood fully what my body was going to go through, or any complications that could happen, especially since I have the heart problems and there's the issues with testosterone and can sometimes cause heart issues. So for anybody to be saying, oh, well, they have no idea what they're doing or what they'd be getting into as far as doing HRT at someone at the age of 16 or 17 is wrong, because before you can even get to that point of getting your first dose of medication, you have to meet so many standards, just to be allowed to be prescribed the medicine.
Yeah, and that's what I think people don't get, is that we're talking about children. When a child says, hey, I think I'm a boy or I think I'm a girl, their parents are like, okay, let's try this out, and then try living it, and they still have to put them in therapy. Like, you have to put a child, whether 9 or 10, in therapy about this. And the doctors aren't going, yes, you're a girl. They're not doing that. They're asking the right questions. They're talking about what it is to feel like that, or what makes them feel like that. They're digging deep into somebody's psyche to feel like, okay, hey, yeah, your kid is trans. And like, that can be like a 6-year down the road conversation.
Right.
They're 15, they've been on hormone blockers for a year, and then they're like, okay, they've been on hormone blockers for a year, they really are trans. We think maybe at 17 we could probably start them on testosterone or something like that, and then at that point the kid's been in therapy for 6-7 years and they really know what the heck they're doing. And the parents are like, okay, this makes sense, let's focus on that. So
right. And so that baffles me, because I know, like I said, even at the age of 32, I ended up having to spend money to go to a psychiatrist to get me my letter for HRT last minute because my therapist supervisor, and mind you, I was seeing this therapist for a couple of years.
Mhm.
And the supervisor would not sign off on my letter for HRT because they said I still needed more sessions. And it's like, I'm 32 years old. Really? I've 2 years, and out of the 2 years, at least a solid 6 months of it was specifically like focused on my gender identity and everything. And I still had to fight tooth and nail to get hormones. So it's not like a 16 or 15-year-old can walk into an endocrinologist's office and say, hey, I'm trans, I want to start HRT. That's not the way it works.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain clinics that do informed consent, which is something that I did, and I started older than you did. But at that point, it's like I just couldn't do it anymore. I've already had issues my whole life. I mean, I learned to pee standing up at a really young age. I was raised around girls and boys, and I hated being in dresses. I loved my hair being short. I hated being called my dead name. I changed my name before I even graduated. Like, I mean, I've been legally changed, but I kept changing my names. I kept telling people to call me different names. I kept trying different things out. Like, it just, like, to me, it's like everything. Like, when I told my family, hey, so I'm transgender, I'm going to transition, on none of them batted an eye.
Same with my family. Like, because I sent out like a mass text because I was just like, okay, like I told my mom in person.
I emailed people.
Yeah, and then just like I sent out a mass text, and I know I made a big Facebook post about it and stuff too, because I just didn't feel like texting everybody individually.
Yeah.
And literally, I don't think I got one response back that said, I'm surprised. Like, everybody's like, okay, this makes sense. This completely makes sense.
Yeah.
And even that's how and I should actually do a blog about it, but I'll touch briefly. That's how I ended up with Andrew. It was my nickname in high school. That's what kids called me, because my dead name just did not resonate with me. They didn't want to call me that because they knew that wasn't who I was.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I didn't even know what being trans was until my late 20s, because it really wasn't talked about.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is like that I'm hearing about a lot of these like don't say gay bills, especially the one that they're trying to pass in Georgia, which loosely translates to this legislation says not to talk about certain things like genders and all that stuff, like similar to Florida, but for mostly private schools, which is weird. Because I think if they try to put this one in public schools, Georgia's gonna riot. They don't want that. They know better. So it's kind of a funny haha
Right.
in my situation. Yeah. And
they're not learning about it. So
exactly. And the cutest thing I can tell anybody is like my family's Catholic. Like, my aunt still goes to mass. And I was like, hey, Nancy, I actually texted her because I felt like she deserved a direct contact from me. I was like, look, I'm transgender. I think you should know from me, not from grandpa, because my grandfather won't tell everybody. So I emailed him and then messaged everybody before he could do it. I love him, but he loves to spread things. So I mean, I told her, and she's like, I just want you happy, and I love you. And then she goes, "How's Seth?" Like, just like I was your wife, Like, that's pretty much how my family went. They're like, okay. They asked about like, am I okay? And then immediately in the same like messages or same emails, it was like, okay, how's your wife? I don't like, so nobody cared. They just want to make sure I was okay. They want to make sure Seth was okay with everything. So
that's crazy, because I was born and raised Catholic too. I mean, yeah. I'm the only one in my immediate family that could actually get married in a Catholic church if I wanted to. I got my first communion. I made my penance. I got my confirmation. Nobody else in my, like, out of me and my siblings went that far. It's like, I can't even get married in a Catholic church if I wanted to. But my family was the same way. When I came out as lesbian, not so much, which was odd. And I think that just the way that the world has changed over time, and things being more, like me being more open about talking about things and educating my family about it and stuff like that is what made them so comfortable with it this time around. Yeah. But they were definitely way more supportive. Like, okay, yeah, like this makes sense. Like, okay, so forgive us. We might slip up with your name because we know that we have 32 years of memories with this person. But I mean, I'm almost 4 years into my transition now, and I can tell you I only know one person that dead names me, and it's only when they're mad. So
Ooh, not cool. My father has issues on his only child, biologically, so he does have issues. He has this new habit of calling me his son daughter, which I told you about, and I was like, that's it's cute, but the son part's the one you want to keep on. So that's it. And I have to correct him every now and then, and he always apologizes. It's also a weird dynamic because this is the first year that my father and I are actually talking. Really
Right.
talking a long time. We have a really strange relationship. It's a very hard relationship. And my grandparents were opposite. My grandparents were they were like, okay. And my grandfather's on top of it. My grandmother's calling me he. My almost 80-year-old grandmother calls me he. I mean, sometimes she called me Doug, which was my dad's name, which was really funny. But they were like,
I take that as a compliment.
yeah, and I was like, okay, cool, fine. But I got top surgery, and I went and saw my family the day after top surgery, and they were like, how are you feeling? Are you okay? Super supportive. My grandmother had like the bed set up for me with like a wedge. She's like, when I got open heart surgery, I had to sleep on this. So like they were really, I'm like, these are people in their late 70s who get it. And then you have these lawmakers who are like
25, 26 years old, not even some of them.
I know it's killing me. I mean, I can probably talk about this all day, but I mean, at this point, I know that
I unfortunately think for Idaho, I'm sorry. I think it's gonna go all the way. I think it's gonna have to go all the way before anybody's really gonna listen to our side of it. It's just really important that you're contacting your local human rights centers and legislators and signing whatever petitions that
allow Biden as much as possible.
Yep. And just do what you can do to let your voice be heard, because the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And we're not going to get anywhere just standing back and staying quiet. We have to speak up.
I 100% agree, because this can't be happening. I mean, Indiana's starting to go through it. I know that federal law courts have actually blocked laws before in Idaho and in West Virginia that were very much against transgender people. So we know it can happen again. We just need to pay attention.
Right. We need to pay attention. We need to speak up. Alabama, same thing. Especially since it hasn't passed yet in Alabama, maybe there's still a chance that if enough people start speaking up, or signing petitions and write emails, right? Go to your town's Facebook page, do whatever you've got to do to be heard. And you never know who might see a comment or who might read a post, and it could help out.
100% agree. And I would definitely like to leave us off with a quote from Lisa Middleton, who is the transgender mayor of Palm Springs, California. I think it's incredibly sad when a political leader finds that the only way they can get themselves elected into office is by attacking vulnerable children and their parents. Of all the issues that are before us in the world and this country today, to make it more difficult for a transgender child and their parent to navigate their life to adulthood is irresponsible. It is also un-American.
100%. That, like I said, it is un-American.
Thank you for listening to Transforming with Us. You can like, follow, and share on all major platforms to keep up with all things trans and queer.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.